Welcome to the fourth episode of the fifth quarter collective. We've made it past, I think, 80% of the podcasts fall off after the third episode. So we've done it. We've hit our milestone. We're cooking with gas. But thanks for joining us again here. And we really wanted to jump right into game two, catch up on the finals so far for the first two games. And it's not looking great for the Mavs, but what have you guys seen so far from what you've been looking at?
Well, first off, how we doing, squad? How's everyone doing today? Luke, Bo, had good days? Jake?
Dude, we're hanging in there. You know, we're trying to keep the dog from barking. That's why we got him up here. If that was what anybody had any idea what was going on, why I have him on my lap.
Hell yeah.
I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic. Got the birthday tomorrow, so I'm doing great.
Bo, I think you might win best background with that view
because
behind
I know
you.
our finals
that
talk,
look
especially
amazing.
around Luke.
Dude, this sunset, I'm telling you right now, it's
Dallas
like, this is basically Van Gogh right here.
Not looking good for him right now. So, Luke, I want to get your thoughts first. What's the pulse going up there? What's going on?
The pulse of the finals. You cut out there, Coleman.
Yes, the pulse of the finals.
Well, to be honest with you, so I watched part of the first game, and the first game was kind of a blowout. I ended up falling asleep in the second half. That's how you can tell kind of the sentiment on that. Second game, I did not get a chance to watch it, but I did, get a chance to watch some of the clips and just kind of hear some of the interviews and post press conferences and stuff like that. And I don't know, it just seems like to me, is it possible this is one of the more boring finals that we've ever had? Like, it's not really helping the case of, all the people that don't like the NBA. And they're like, oh, it's such a postseason sport, right? But now the postseason seemingly is just, I don't know, not as exciting as it could be. But I don't know how you feel, Bo, or Jake.
First off, I thought Luka had a phenomenal, basically carried the team on his back first half, and that was impressive to watch. On top of that, I had a few stats I wanted to throw out there that I thought was kind of nuts, just looking back at game two. Porzingis had 20 points in 21 minutes played, which that's kind of an X factor that you want to put up there on the whiteboard before the game. Second off, Drew Holiday, I believe, went 10 of 13 shooting from the field. So when you have two players like that who aren't your two star players playing that well, especially when Kyrie is having not his normal night, we'll just say that, or he's not putting up production like Luka is, it's very hard to beat a team like that. Jaden Hardy played okay, but his defense obviously isn't as good as Drew Holiday's is on the Celtics. So I think that was a big deciding factor. But like what you're saying, it's interesting because NBA always had, back when it was Warriors versus the Cavs for however many years in a row, you could basically predict the finals for about 2 to 3 years straight. And now that it's like different teams are getting in, I wonder how it's not as much excitement because you could kind of see like the Curry versus LeBron. That was like a big deal. Now it's like Luka and Tatum. But the first two games, it's like, I don't know if it's living up to the hype of the previous final. So there's like a step down that the new generation isn't getting the excitement behind it like we've had growing up.
To your point, Bo, of the current finals is that's going to worry you if you're Dallas. That Drew Holiday and Porzingis both had their games in game one and game two, and Boston shot so poorly from three in game two, yet they still came out on top. That's really, really got to worry you if you're Dallas right now. Going back home, Luka's hurt. Porzingis is hurt, but he's already had his game. So you're going back home down 0-2, and your Boston's two best players have not played that well. I mean, they played good, and Luka's given you 30 every single game, but they haven't played that well. That's got to worry you a little bit.
Yeah, with Luka being that banged up, and he looks like an old man before he walks out on the court. Maybe Kyrie should dress up as Uncle Drew again. Maybe that'll get them back on track. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's the missing piece. Maybe that's what it is.
I completely agree. I think you look at Luka and just how he's moving around those first two quarters versus the last. He's clearly battling through so much. I think he's gassed out. I don't think there's much left in the tank. And quite frankly, I don't know what more they could ask for him. they need Kyrie Irving to put up 30 points, and they need Luka to put up 30 points from here on out if they have any single chance. Hard task when you have the depth and the defensive depth of the Celtics, but Luka's doing all that he can. And I think the nail in the coffin moment when I was watching the game, and I actually tweeted this earlier today, was it's in 3 minutes ago in that third quarter. I think Celtics are up 8 or so. It's still within range, but the Mavs come down, miss a shot, and Jaylen Brown's in the corner and kind of pushes Luka right in the chest. And you can see Luka gets all pissy, starts talking trash to him a little bit, but he's just hobbling back. And there's numerous videos. If you didn't see it live, you can just look at how banged up he is by looking at how his lateral quickness isn't there at all. Like, they were just destroying him off the dribble and trying to get him switched onto any playmaker like Tatum or Jaylen Brown. And he can hardly shuffle side to side. So that's bringing those rim defenders in, exposing those corner threes or just other opportunities with those slashers coming to the rim. I think it's going to be really tough. I just don't think the Mavs have the firepower that the Celtics did, which I think majority of us kind of touched on two episodes ago when we were kind of previewing what might happen here. I think a lot of people are maybe undervaluing Tatum, right? Even though he's not having like 30-point games and everything, he's doing all that's asked of him. But yeah, I'd say that Jaylen Brown's rising to the occasion and Drew Holiday's just been lights out. Is it possible that we see Drew Holiday or Porzingis take home Finals MVP? Because I don't know if right now it's solely Tatum.
I don't know about that one. I think it's Tatum just because of how much he changes the game. Like, Tatum, when he has the ball at the top of the key and they're doing pick and roll, there's like at least 3 players who have their eyes directly on him. Like, there was one point where he went to do a pick and roll, the help side came over, just threw it to the wing, quick 3. Like, he changes the whole court and how the game flows when he's on the court. And if you took him off, for example, Drew Holiday, who I love, you're obviously going to see a different game being played than when Tatum's on the court. Now, not to say that Drew Holiday hasn't had, or Porzingis, a great finals so far, but just given that it's usually a popularity contest tied in with who's the best player on each team. So it's probably going to be Jason Tatum.
Yeah, and you have to expect Tatum's going to go for at least 30 in one of these games.
Right.
Whether it's a closeout game or just to set the tone, game 3, first game in Dallas, he has to go. Him or Brown has to go for 30-plus in one of these games.
Is it possible? Is it possible for non-players to get the MVP? Could we give Brad Stevens? Could we give it to Brad Stevens? Is that a fair? If we were writing the rules, could we give it to a non-player? Because I think Brad Stevens is the guy. He assembled quite the team, and it's certainly paying dividends right now. So
yeah, you just looking at the bench scoring, right? Like Porzingis going off, and then you look at the Mavs. I think they had like less than 10 points maybe from the bench. But I don't know. I think, of course, it's a popularity contest. I don't think Tatum is like easy front runner for MVP. I think Jaylen Brown's been doing a lot more, and really Drew Holiday. Again, defense doesn't get a lot of credit, but asked to guard whoever has always rose to the occasion while having this scoring output. I think it just goes above and beyond. And if you're the Milwaukee Bucks right now, doing the Dame experiment this year and then also looking at what Drew's doing in this finals, I think you're kicking yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Funny enough, I just had this conversation with Dad today and how hindsight's 20/20, but the Bucks are really looking at themselves like, what did we just do? Like, you've got on paper a great team, like we've talked about before, but Holiday is easily a huge game changer in the finals, having somebody who can play that well at defense and offense. So they got to be kicking themselves right now.
To think Boston traded who they trade? Robert Williams, Time Lord, and some picks 5 days after Milwaukee traded him to Portland. Like, that's the steal of the year so far. Because Drew Holiday is a finals-like player, is your playoff guy. Can guard whoever, can score when he needs to, the ultimate team player.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. And I just get to wondering what else is needed. I mean, all we've heard, right, all the hype up to this, it's obviously Kyrie and Luka, right, the greatest guard duo that, we've seen in recent history. Kyrie hasn't rose to the occasion yet, and I think you're super disappointed with what he's done so far. But do you think we look back at Luka in the same same light as what we looked at James Harden on the Rockets, right? Like very ball dominant player, had some supporting cast, but like I don't know what's the answer for the Mavs going forward this season. What are you trying to add? Is Kyrie, is Kyrie going to be the long-term duo that you're pairing him with, or what else is needed, do you think?
I think as of right now, Kyrie is your guy, is your number two. I mean, he played well in the Minnesota series. He played really well in the Denver series. Like, he got you to the finals. Granted, he's never had good luck in Boston since he left. I want to say he's 0-12, 0-13 since leaving Boston, which is an absurd stat, by the way, if you really look at that. With the Nets and Mavericks, you haven't won in Boston in over, I think 3 years. Kind of absurd stat, but back to the point. I think he's your guy for right now. I don't know what their cap space looks like. We can discuss that on a later pod when we get closer to free agency and stuff like that. But I think you need to get maybe not so much like a third star, because I don't think you can afford that on your payroll, but you need a third guy. You need that third scoring option. Just like Boston has Drew Holiday as that third scoring option. And they also have a couple bench guys. Like Pritchard can create a shot off the bench. Like, you need some of those guys. And maybe that's Hardy if he steps up over the next couple of years. But as of right now, I think you need to go out and get a guy.
Completely agree with what you said. I think they need a third option. Luka's carrying the team while injured. I think it's just also half of it being how much better would the team be if Luka's at 100% playing this? And if Kyrie has a decent series, where would we be talking about this finals? Because Kyrie hasn't been playing like how they expected him to be playing, and Luka's playing at half capacity at best, we'll just say. He can't really play defense like Jake touched on earlier. So if they're both at full health, where are we talking about this finals? Is it 1-1? Do they win one of the games? Is Kyrie actually producing more?
I think Dallas had game 2 there for the taking. Boston shot so poorly from 3. All they had to do was put together a couple shots, and they just couldn't.
Yeah, I think I'll be interested to see if it comes out this offseason, if Luka has a bunch of surgeries and things done, because he just looks like he's completely broken and needs to be laid up in a hospital bed for the entire offseason so he can rest and heal. So, hopefully he heals up. It'll be interesting to see game 3, but obviously not too optimistic there. And I think at this point, it's quite similar to just putting a chair out like you're at practice if you want him trying to defend anybody on top of the key or the wing. It's just they're going to get around, and it's going to be a huge weakness. And echoing on your guys' point of like the missing pieces for the Mavs, PJ Washington, I think he's quite a coin flip. I don't think he's obviously – I mean, they brought him in. I don't think he's incredible. I don't think he's that reliable. Many years ago, I even shut him down in 7th grade when we were playing and battling out in Memphis. Some things don't change. But I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see what they add, but I guess we'll have to report some more next week after these next few games here.
Are you guys predicting a sweep the rest of the way? Because I know we're talking very high.
Because I was the one Mavs guy in this group. I want to keep them alive for as long as possible. I really wanted to run some victory laps around you guys when the Mavs will win, and it's still not over. But we'll see. We'll see. Their chances are looking really slim. So I don't know.
If they are going to win one, it's going to be at home. This is the one that could really get them back on track. So this is going to be the deciding factor of sweeper. If they actually have a shot.
I think I originally did Celtics in 5, and I don't think they win game 3. I think they win game 4, give a little something for the fans, last little whimper before the lights go out, and that'll be that.
Awesome. Well, in other NBA news that kind of dominated the headlines, probably more than the finals itself, is Danny Hurley declining the Los Angeles Lakers and staying at UConn. I want to say he had a 6-year, $70 million contract to make him top 5 highest paid coach in the NBA. I think we're a little split amongst the group of, did he make the right decision? Should he have stayed at UConn and went for the 3rd title in a row? Or do you go and relish the opportunity of coaching probably the most storied franchise in NBA history, getting the last couple of years of LeBron and kind of building the program post-LeBron AD? So would love to get your guys' thoughts on, did he make the right call, in your opinion?
Personally, I think he made the right call. I mean, and I could argue either way, really. You could definitely argue if he went with the Lakers, it was definitely the right decision. Just with financially, like who wouldn't do that? But from a standpoint of just going back to stores, I just don't think he would be a good fit for the Lakers. I mean, he's just this hot-headed dude that it works in college, and I think that part, wouldn't fly as much. It would, focus too much on the coach in the NBA, and that really doesn't happen all that much, I feel like. But he's more of a developmental guy, and likes to develop from high school, and then is building these championships. But I would feel like that's would be pretty hard to do, especially with someone like LeBron. Even though he is, one of the greatest players of all time, he's definitely in the back nine of his career, I would say. So I don't know how much development there's going to be there, which is pluses and minuses, but I don't know. There's just, I didn't see there would be benefit towards him. He's got it good at UConn, and why would you leave that?
Yeah, I think Hurley's going to look back at this, and it'll be his biggest regret on his deathbed. I think you turned down, again, the most storied franchise, the dream NBA job of anybody would want, coaching at the highest professional level with the greatest NBA player of all time. Sure, he can be a headache, but I don't see how you don't jump and take this. I think, yes, success is undeniable at UConn. I think he, the pay when you're looking at it in California, it was $70 million deal. There's going to be a lot of taxes on that, so cut it to about 50
million he'd make. He would lose out on 40 million due to tax.
33 million he would make. 40 million would be lost out because of tax. And I think his contract at UConn, he signed.
Connecticut's not the best. Connecticut's not the tax haven of the world, but FYI. Right. So,
right. I get that. I just think, even put aside all the financial reasons about this, I think you don't turn down an opportunity to go coach the Lakers. LeBron's there. He's towards the end of his career. So yeah, maybe he's a pain in the ass and kind of runs the show for 2-3 years. Maybe you have to draft Bronny next year. I just don't think that would be a bad move, though. And I don't think there's been a lot made about his coaching style. And I completely understand you have a bit more of a leash when you're coaching young teenagers or young adults on these college teams. But there's been a lot of hard asses in the NBA too that have been okay. Look at Tibbs and his hard-nosed style. You can look up all the interviews from those Bulls teams, and even now of the emphasis on defense and really riding them. Yeah, maybe he's not the typical player coach, easy to get along with, and fun practices and all that, but that's not what they're there for. They're there to win championships. I think it'd be a good culture shock.
Not to be that guy, Tibbs got ran out of town twice until he took the Knicks job. He got ran out of town in Chicago, then he got ran out of town in Minnesota because they didn't like his coaching style. Now it's finally worked because he's got some guys. He's got college guys. He's got the Villanova guys in New York who went through the Jay Wright system, who probably enjoy that style of coaching. So I don't think it works for everyone. I think if you get that rare special team like the Knicks are, that'll work. But I don't think that works for everybody.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you have to mold. And again, this is when team building comes into play. And that's another sticky component, right? It's like, how much say does LeBron have? How much does Jeannie Buss, Rob Pelinka, all of those, right? Is it really Dan Hurley's team, or is it outside of his hands? Because if that's the case, that would never work. He'd need to bring in those players that would really commit to his system. And that's what I'm saying, where sure, you have a few years left of LeBron. After that, though, maybe some high draft picks and really remolding this into the true team that you want there in LA.
Building off what you guys both said, I think it's a phenomenal move not to go do it, because in a few years, sure, he could build it into something great. Let's just start there. He already has what he needs at UConn. They're already the center focal point, basically, of college basketball, back-to-back. They could go for a three-peat. I mean, they're the top of the top right now. And his coaching style fits much better with younger kids. Like, imagine him trying to be up in LeBron, for example's face like that. Like, that's just not going to mix at all. LeBron's going to be like, dude, I run this league. Like, I could have you fired tomorrow if you're really going to talk to me like that. Not saying he would. But his coaching style works much better with people who need to prove themselves rather than in the NBA. I believe you need more of a hands-off coach because it's much more about personalities in the NBA. It's just managing people's personalities to get the locker room to gel together and then play basketball rather
Especially
than
with the personalities in LA. Like, you need to be a player's guy out there.
Yeah, exactly. And a good point. It is LA. So it's very much a player's coach. And I feel like where he is now, he's already built his legacy and kingdom at UConn, in my opinion. So like leaving to just start over from square one after building it up to where it is now just seems like, I don't know, it seems like you're going in a circle. Like you're already where you probably dreamed of being, and like seeing him as a coach and how much the players buy into him. And he's already the guy at UConn. So it's like he already has what he needs. Why throw it away to try to do something out in LA when he already has everything put together? I think he's making a great decision. He'll look back in 5 years like, this is phenomenal. The Lakers are terrible. It would have like ruined my coaching resume and career. And I think it's definitely a good move on his part just to stay where he's already the king. Because even if he doesn't win this year, I think they'll probably make an Elite Eight, maybe a Final Four appearance, just given how he's such a good coach. So the next 3 to 4 years, I think he'll look back like this is a fantastic decision. UConn still loves him. He's going to basically be coaching there for as long as they want him to be. I think he can really just be like Calipari was at Kentucky, but as we saw with Calipari, that also runs out after about a decade.
I don't think this was early turning down a chance at the pros based off of who he is, because he's a very self-aware guy. You can see it in interviews that he does. You can see it in the way he coaches his players. He's very self-aware and knowledgeable about himself. I think this is him turning down the Lakers, not the NBA, because he's expressed interest in multiple interviews throughout the past of, hey, my end goal is the NBA. Now, with the Lakers, you don't know if you're going to have creative control over that team. You do. You're dealing with LeBron Cam. You're dealing with Pelinka. You're dealing with Jeannie Buss. You have all these heads, and you're probably the most scrutinized coach from the time football season ends till mid-June, no matter if you're in the finals or not. With UConn, yes, you have your Big East fans who are very loyal people, great people, but this is not the Lakers. This is not the national media. This is not you getting talked about every single day on First Take. And hell, you're moving halfway. You're moving across the country. Your wife probably isn't the biggest fan of LA. And as we know, Hurley's wife is the one who calls the shots in the relationship. But I think it's that, and he's self-aware enough to where he knows, hey, I'm not mature enough for the NBA right now. He's a high school guy through and through. He coaches UConn like he coaches a high school team. He's well aware and has said it before that, like, maybe this isn't going to work in the NBA. I have to wait and mature. I have to wait and become a better coach. I have to become more of a cooler and calmer head, per se, not so much a hot head, because that shit's not going to work with the NBA. That shit's especially not going to work with 40-year-old LeBron, who's seen it, done it, everything that there's been done in professional basketball. So I think that's one thing. But I think if the Knicks job opened up this year, which it would never, because I think they're going to give Thibodeau an extension. If it did, I think he would jump for something like that. I don't think it's more of him as, hey, I'm not ready for this, because he could always give it a shot and always come back to college. He'd be always welcome back there, just like Pitino, just like Calipari did when they made the jump to the NBA. They're always welcome back at these blue blood jobs. I think it's more along the lines of the fit didn't work out for him. And money, whatever, because he's going to get another extension with UConn. And it's going to be worth, I think, $50 million over the next couple of years. So $20 million less than he's making than he would have made in LA. And creative control of what he wants to do with his program. Yes, it's a lot more work in college, but you still have that stability and you still have that familiarity when you can always make the jump at a later point.
Are you telling me though? Because I'm thinking it comes into LA. The first guys I'm going after, I'm just creating a defensive team, right? I'm going counterculture. Who cares about offense? I'm almost going Bo Ryan Badgers, right? Very fundamentals. We're going Rudy Gobert. I think we're going Jayshawn Tate, DeAndre Hunter, Lou Dort. You know, I don't know how there's going to be points scored. It's going to be very ugly. They're going to turn it into a very slow-paced game and team. They might even look like St. Mary's and how slow they play within the tournament. But I think there could be some culture mix-up in LA. I don't know if that would go over well with the front office, but yeah, I guess we'll never know. Do you think he gets back to the finals next year with UConn? You think he makes it back?
as a huge Duke fan, I got my money on Duke, given I think this is their best recruiting class. I think they have 3 of the top 10 recruits, but UConn's right there. So I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think UConn definitely is a shot. All the players that come out of UConn, I feel like Hurley as a coach. There's no somebody graduates and talks bad on him, like, oh, I didn't like him, blah, blah, blah. But I think definitely they got a shot to win it in 3-peat.
Yeah, why wouldn't you try for a 3-peat rather than go coach a perennial play-in team?
Do we think the Lakers crawl back crying to JJ Redick?
I got to think about that. What if the Danny Hurley thing was the smokescreen to the smokescreen, and they just needed time to buy like JJ some time, basically, because he's got to call the finals and do all this, but they I think another name gets thrown around is James Borrego. I'm like, well, who was he with? The Hornets? I don't think that was I didn't think that experiment went too well. I think
he's AD's guy. I think AD has a say in that one.
Interesting. Mr. Glass.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to rely on a person that's, as reliable as Mr. Glass. And we're not talking about him making rebounds, We're talking about him being on the basically having rent on the IR. So
hey, it's not a hot topic, but Bo Ryan is technically a free agent. They could bring him in. They could make him a juicy offer. I don't know if they're ready for the swing offense in LA. I don't know if they're ready.
Yeah, that would be the death of Showtime.
We're here for it if it happens.
You would kill Showtime.
JJ, just to touch on that, seems like much more of a fit in LA than Hurley. Like, just from a personality perspective, I feel JJ is going to be way more of a hands-off, definitely a player's coach. Like, everybody's probably going to gel with him just because he's been through the whole process. And Hurley just has a different philosophy. And both work, but they both work in different systems. And I think LA is much more aligned with, hands off, let me do my thing. When we have to work, you can get on my ass, tell me what I got to do. But there's a line that it's just a different way of thinking.
Yeah, and I want to say this. I'm not saying Hurley can't do that at some point in his career. I don't think right now is that moment for him. And with JJ, I don't want to say it so much as a smokescreen, but I don't see why you just can't say, hey, we're going after JJ Redick. We all know he's doing the finals. We all know he's broadcasting the finals, so why not? I mean, the Bucks poached Doc Rivers midway through the season. He was calling games.
That's true.
I don't know. JJ's pretty busy though. He's finally blowing up. He had Russillo on the pod 2 weeks ago. I mean, are you giving that up for a Lakers job? I don't know. I don't think so. What were you going to say, Bo?
JJ, just on that point, being a player's coach is super laid back. What did you just think if they? I guess it is because he's doing the finals thing. Do you think this is just a distraction, like Luke said, or do you guys actually believe they're going after him and they're just kind of feeling out the water?
I think he's clearly their second option. I feel like it's they're in the situation where they just asked somebody to prom, they got rejected, and now they're going to the second girl that knew they're the second option. That's not a good place to be. If you're JJ, you're probably still taking it because the money will be great. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but that's a rocky way to start off the relationship there.
Yeah, and I don't know what the state of the NBA. The Lakers are not. They're not even in really the top 10 team. They're in the bottom half seemingly, and I don't know what their cap situation looks like, any of their trade picks look like, but if they're gonna have any success in building and making a run, they gotta figure it out. I don't know what that is, but I don't know if a coach is gonna do that. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I don't know how much, as of just recently, player coaches have fared in the NBA. I mean, you look at Chauncey Billups up in Portland. I mean, that team's kind of a dumpster fire. Yeah, you have draft picks, but it's only going to get you so far. And the Lakers do control most of their draft picks. I believe they control this year's first. I don't think they have next year's first, but they do have picks once LeBron leaves, or retires. But I don't know. I think you have to go out and hire, whether it is James Borrego, which is not a splashy hire. I don't like the hire. But I want to say Woj tweeted it today, hey, they've looked at the college ranks once. Do you go back and look at the college ranks again? Do you pick a guy at one of these high major programs and just kind of give him another look?
Do you throw an offer out to Cal and make the funniest thing happen in the world? I think that would be awesome.
Gosh, that would be wild. That would be actually that'd be very LA. That'd be entertaining. All of the media would be all over that.
Tyson Chicken Nuggets will have to pay more. He'll have to ante up with so much more money.
The Cal tax.
Tyson would pay whatever they wanted to get him to stay. They'll triple the Lakers' salary.
Yeah, they would. They would.
I was just thinking too, guys, with LeBron, still very productive. Like I loved watching him this year. Obviously, still a huge impact player. Do you think we're getting close to that bridge though of drawing out his career a little bit? I mean, how many years do you think he has in him? 2 max, maybe, or are you guys not seeing any signs of him kind of dipping?
I think we're getting close. You know, we see kind of not even from a basketball standpoint. Yes, he does sit out, you know, just due to load management and injuries and just kind of maintenance, I guess. But just from his outside life, you know, you get to see a little more and kind of paralleling to like a Nick Saban. You know, he started to get on TV more, started to see like a more personable side of it. So I don't know. Maybe there's a correlation, maybe there's not to that. But, you know, with LeBron doing all these podcasts with JJ and, you know, getting these wine talks or whatever, like, I don't know. I think people tend to, when they get to the end of their career, that's when things like that, at least in this modern-ish era, I think it is coming to an end.
I think he already would have been done if Bronny wasn't so close to being in the league. I think he's just trying to make history, be like, I played with my son. Anybody who coaches that team, that's going to be the pick no matter what. It might be like a rule not written, but like wherever Bronny is available, that's the team he's going to. Because that'll be something probably nobody will be able to say in the history of the NBA, like, I played with my son and am basically the greatest basketball player that's ever played. So I think if Bronny, let's just say, was 5 years younger, I think he already would have retired and he would just be like, yeah, you know, I've done everything. I basically have won every stat box score. I've won the rings. This is the most dominant player for a decade and a half, 2 decades. But I think he's really just trying to play with his son. And, I mean, that's really the only factor of why he would still be in the league, in my eyes.
I think he still has something left in the tank still. He's a top 15 NBA player still. Yeah, he wasn't what he was with like those 2010 teens Heat teams and those early Cavs teams and those late Cavs teams, but he's still a top 15, arguably top 20 player in the NBA. He's the best player in the Lakers. The Lakers are a playing team. And people were legit, if they didn't match up with the Nuggets in the first round, people legit said, hey, maybe the Lakers could have made a run. I mean, no, they made the conference finals last year. They were 4 games away from getting to another finals at age, whatever it was, 37. I still think there's not a lot left in the tank, but I don't want to say, hey, he's got 2 years left. He's got a year left. He just wants to play with his son. I still think the drive to win a title is still there. And all of those things are added pluses by completing the points record a couple years ago, playing with his son. But there's a lot more to give on the court for LeBron, I believe. And everyone's saying, yes, they're going to count him out at some point. But I haven't seen that point yet, so I don't want to count him out just yet.
Yeah. And if we are in this waiting period for, I mean, if any coach is feeling tortured of taking this job because they feel like LeBron is running the show, why not just throw Rob Pelinka down there? Like, I remember when Bo and I saw him at one of the Milwaukee playoff games. He's got the face for LA. He could do press conferences. He looks like Rob Lowe. Like, I don't know. If you just want somebody to be a puppet, throw him down on the court. I don't know. It might not be a bad idea.
You could, in just this scenario, you could really, building off of that, take like a really young coach who they're like, everybody in the league's like, why did you take this guy? But LeBron could probably just coach him like, look, I run this team. You're just going to do what I say. And then when I'm gone, you can actually run the team.
Maybe throw an offer for Doug Gottlieb. I don't know.
That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Might as well get Jeff.
Where's he at, like Green Bay High School or something like that?
Green Bay College. Yep. Okay, here's a good tangent. Who would you pick, not a basketball coach at all? Who would you pick to coach the Lakers?
Jim Rome.
I like that.
That's good. I appreciated that one.
That was good.
It's Jim Rome in the jungle. The whole jungle help coach the team.
Jim Rome pulls for his roster moves.
Jim Rome live on X. That's why we're not live on X yet. We gotta go on days that Rome's not live because he's gonna take away from our audience a little bit.
Taking away from viewership. No good. Not good.
Not to make one last point on the Lakers, but have you guys considered maybe the fact that they just hire a rental till LeBron's done? They get a LeBron guy to come in, not Ty Lue because he just signed an extension, but a guy like that to coach for the next 2-3 years. And then when he retires, then you get a program builder. Then maybe you go after Hurley again, or you go after one of these younger guys like a Joe Mads or like a Udoka when Brad Stevens hired him in Boston for the first time. Do you get a guy like that that can grow with the team and kind of build that culture and build that program?
I think that's really interesting, to be honest with you, because I feel like, like I said before, like the Lakers are not going to win a championship in the near future. And so why waste a good talent like Danny Hurley, in that time frame? Because sports nowadays, it's just such a scoreboard business. And with the market that they're in, it's going to get hot, hot, hot. It doesn't matter how long his contract is. I mean, obviously, though, it would be an expensive one for sure. But yeah, I definitely agree with the rental. Maybe that's where the James Borrego comes through. So,
or for rentals, why aren't we talking Udonis Haslem, James Jones? I mean, guys that have been carried to those past teams, just throw them in the hot seat. Who knows? Yeah. On that point too, like my other point with Hurley, I just think with the headaches of NIL and portal, I know we beat this dead horse already, but I think just dealing with NBA free agency might be a lot easier. I think it's only going to get tougher to recruit. Of course, you've won national championships. That helps play in recruiting, but we'll see. And I did just want to touch on one final NBA point before we move on here. I was very frustrated during game 2. We had a little action on the game, 3-leg parlay, and it was going to hit. I thought it was certain. I needed Luka over 32.5 points. He's at 29 ending the third quarter. Of course, with them being down, that's hitting, right? He ends at 32. Crushed. Gotta love the little extra excitement on the game, but that did piss me off. That irked me a little bit. I did have to throw that in there. That was my very agonizing moment of the weekend there. But anything else, guys, on the NBA?
After hearing that 3-leg parlay miss, I thought you're definitely going to say they're going to get swept now. I thought that was it, lock it in.
Yeah. I think next on the docket, I don't know if there's much to be said on this. Maybe I'm wrong, but our girl, Caitlin Clark, not heading to the Olympics, surprisingly. Team USA does not want her. I found that interesting. Any thoughts?
I mean, I think it was probably – I don't know if it was the right move, to be honest with you. In my mind, if they're trying to grow the sport, grow the game, as they say, they probably needed her because if we're being honest, who else – like who's watching this? Like we still just are going back to the same, argument of like women's sports in general, if we're being honest.
As the number one WNBA podcast, are you not watching women's basketball in the Olympics?
The clips, brother. We're watching the clips. But yeah, no, I think it's a disservice. I don't know. I mean, I get it. They're trying to keep, like a Diana Taurasi on there, right? But I think her time has come and gone. Why is she still there? Bring some youth to it. And that's all I really have to say. I think they should, like, who cares, honestly? Like, just get some viewership.
Coleman, would you like to go or would you like me to take it away?
Go ahead, please.
This is completely the wrong move. You're finally given the opportunity to really like level up the whole WNBA. You have like as bad as it sounds like, you have at least a lot of excitement moving into the NBA with Caitlin Clark. This is like the biggest female basketball player in my time that I think of. Like I have never watched women's sports until she really was at Iowa balling out. Now, I remember when I first watched, I was like, oh, she could really hoop. Like, this is actually exciting to watch. Because usually, compared to men's basketball, it's much more fundamental. But she, like, when she's playing, she literally can hoop like a guy. So it's like, you can, like, tell, it's like, this is way more exciting to watch. The viewers are there. Everybody's rallying behind it. Like, this is there's momentum behind this. And to just go the other way about it is a horrendous move. I think they'll look back and be like, why did we do this? They were given a great opportunity to make something happen and just squandered.
All right. As the number one WNBA podcast, I feel like I have to have an opinion on this. And I want to just pull a question to the group. What year are we in? 2024?
would be the year. Yes, sir. Yep.
Paris Olympics. Not much buzz. I'm not a big Olympics guy. Not much buzz around it for me. However, if my question to you is, Michael Phelps, you're head of United States swimming. Do you have 48, 44-year-old Michael Phelps trot out and swim for the United States national team, knowing he's going to get smoked?
Yes.
Why?
I mean, he's such a figure in such like two Olympic sports, at least for the United States. Like people still, it's kind of like Tiger coming back to golf, right? After all of his, his off the course stuff, people
That's
would
great.
watch that.
And if this were a solo sport, what if he's swimming a relay? And you have 3 other guys who are true-blooded Olympians who are dominating their craft, have to put up with this 44-year-old, however old he is. I don't want to disrespect the man's age. However old he is, slowpoke, and knowing he gets smoked solely for clicks, views, and TV ratings. Do you do it?
Not at all. I think if you're in the situation Michael doesn't want to swim, for example, the better route would be to have him at least there, because it brings like a pride of like, this is like an American superhero. You know what I mean? Like, this man has won the most gold medals, I believe, out of any American ever.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you do with Caitlin Clark. You bring her over to that 3v3 women's basketball team, which a couple other WNBA rookies are doing. Now, I'm not again, we are the #1 WNBA podcast. However, I am not glued in to WNBA stats. But I damn sure know that her dropping 33 points one time is not going to put her up in the upper echelon, top 12 of WNBA players out there. There are people who have played internationally before. There are people who have gone to the Olympics before. There are people who have won titles, who have played in all-star games in the WNBA. There are ladies who deserve this. Not saying Caitlin doesn't, but saying she would only be there for clicks and views. Then put her in a secondary event. Put her in the 3v3 if you want to draw ratings. The Olympics is about winning. The Olympics are about putting pride in your country. The Olympics are not about getting clicks or views. That's what Big 3 basketball with Ice Cube is for. That's not what this is. This is the world's games. This is the world's event. So I don't want to say make a mockery, but you don't want to put in undeserving people for clicks, ratings, and primetime TV views.
I just think you kissed away 60% of anybody who would actually tune in. And I think there's going to be a lot of people. A lot of people that
doesn't care. They care about the gold medal. And yes, you could say like, it's like putting LeBron on that 04 team. And that's a logical argument to say that. However, if you're going to go there and serious about winning, rather than just getting those clicks and views, you're going to put the best 12 players on that team.
Are the 12 best players on the team?
Judging from the stats, I think yes.
Okay.
I feel like just adding somebody young and exciting like that, even if they're the 12th person, is much more exciting as a fan. Because you see, like, even if let's just say she plays 5 minutes and she scores 6 points, let's just say, right? She does well and then she gets subbed out. That's more exciting for fans because you're like, oh, that's the future of like what we have. But I get what you're saying about the point of like, this is about winning and it's about gold medals. I completely understand that. But like Jake said, this is a huge.
Do you think back in 1994 when they had the Dream Team, people gave a shit about Christian Laettner coming off the bench? No. If you care about women's basketball, you don't care if she's on that team.
But I disagree. Who on the women's Olympic team can you name right now? Because I can't name any of them.
Kelsey Plum, Asia Wilson,
R.I.P. Darren Waller.
Brittany Griner's on it. That's 4 right there. Again, we are the #1 WNBA podcast.
Sabrina Ionescu, isn't she on there?
Yep. Yeah, she's pretty good. She's pretty good.
I mentioned. We can do this, guys. We can do this.
Is the biggest tragedy of the WNBA season Darren Waller putting out the frickin' music video?
That's something right there.
I don't think this is an Olympic issue. I think this issue is at heart within the WNBA. I think it's not an Olympic issue because that's an entirely separate entity who does not need views, who does not need clicks, because they will always be there every 4 years. I think this is the WNBA's time to showcase her. I don't think it's the Olympic time to showcase her.
I think this is one of the biggest injustices I've seen since, if you've watched Full Swing, you get the behind the scenes footage. Zach Johnson did not pick Keegan Bradley for the Ryder Cup. I think it's that level. I'm upset. I would have not handled it as graciously as she has. Go watch her interviews of her being asked about it. She handles it with nothing but class, is excited for everybody for the team, and I think that's why it makes it so easy to root for her.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Yeah, I'm rooting for her. Good. Glad she's having such a great college season. But to be one of the 12 best of the United States, I don't think they would go that far to say that. And with Keegan Bradley, it's the exact opposite. Keegan Bradley was more deserving than everyone. More deserving than Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas got it because it was a boys' club at the time.
Anybody else who watched that, I think you probably had a similar experience. That was tragic to see Bradley not make that team. If you haven't seen the episode, do yourself a favor and go watch it on Netflix. You need to.
Just don't watch the Ryder Cup. It'll waste your time.
Yeah, that's our WNBA recap. I mean, we're staying true to that. Moving along, unless anybody else had anything else there. No?
Mm-mm.
Moving along, we had some interesting recruiting tactics at Texas, rolling out the Lambos for some recruits visiting. Pretty genius marketing idea. I'm surprised with it being Texas, they didn't have Cybertrucks all tricked out with Longhorn paint or wrapped, customized there. But what do you guys think about this new era of recruiting?
I think, so I don't know if it's the entire locker room, but there's 85 guys on the roster or on the team. So I don't think all 85 are getting these Lambos or whatever, but it just kind of speaks just in general, like how much dudes are getting paid and like how much it could be like, there could be like a division in the locker room, and with, people just kind of coming in and going out. I feel like culture is just becoming such a big thing in today's college sports, just to be successful. Because if one person doesn't like another person, then it's just like, especially if a quarterback is not in tune with its running back or any of its receivers, and there's beef there, even though they might be the best players on the field. I don't know. I just feel like it wouldn't be, a good thing for that. But I mean, it is cool to see like all the gifts that these players are getting. Lambos are in pretty impressive cars. Should they be giving it to 18 through 21-year-olds? I don't know. I was 18 and, I had an accident pretty quickly. Giving someone with that much power, I don't know. Lot of responsibility there, just from a liability standpoint. But yeah, I don't know. It's cool. If they're good, sure, why not? I don't know.
Jake, Bo, I'll let you guys touch on this first as two guys who have played football in high school and potentially been recruited.
Yeah, I think it's the time we live in, right? So it's adapt or die. So I appreciate schools like Texas. They're pulling out the red carpets for all these athletes, no doubt. If I see Lambo and that was an option and that was in the package, yeah, I mean, definitely get some brownie points there. I do think, though, that it's going to cloud a lot of judgment from players just on the recruiting aspect, right? I mean, there's going to be all these flashy, shiny objects, whether it be cars, whether it be money, all those things to take into consideration, and that's their decision at the end of the day. But I think it's going to distract from the most important thing, which is relationships with their coaches, head coaches, positional coaches, what their long-term development is really going to be. And the other thing that I think about from a player aspect too is just some of the internal strife that might be created with a lot of these different deals, because it's quite different from player to player, as it should be, right? I mean, you're not going to equalize all of the NIL deals and things for everybody on the team, but if you got your left tackle making quite more than your left guard and various other people within the depth chart, I just think it's already hard enough to win games when everybody's doing the same thing and rowing in the same direction. I think some of these distractions can come into play and create some morale or decay within the locker room as time goes on. And I'm not saying one Lambo is going to do that. I don't love it, but again, it's the time we're in. I think if you're not doing that, you're probably falling behind and losing recruits.
Yeah, and I'll say this: this is not the first time a program has done this before. Trotted out cards, trotted out Lambos. Oklahoma's done it in the past. Alabama's done it in the past. There's history, so where you guys can actually look this up in your free time and view how they've done the same exact thing. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It is what it is. I'm with Jake. I'm with you. I think it should be more about the relationship making, the program, what it's like to live in that city, what it's like to be in that team, in that locker room, be in that field house every single day. I completely agree with you there. But I think in the era that we live in, this is the stuff you have to do. And it's working for them. Who are we to criticize a program that over the past 3 years has finished 3rd, 5th, and 6th in national recruiting rankings? This shit works. Who cares if they get ridiculed? They're not going to change it because they're getting recruits. And as the resident Texas insider and #1 WNBA podcaster, they only had, I want to say it was a small recruiting weekend. It was their first of 3. They had about, I think, 7 or 8 guys in town. And one of them committed today since their visit, since they left on Sunday. So this shit works. So we can ridicule them all they want, but Texas is going to continue to recruiting at a high level, and they're going to be continue being good and being in that national championship conversation year in, year out.
Could it be a bigger picture? Because how did we see all this? It was on social media. Maybe this is just not necessarily, hey, we're going to give our players cars or whatever, but these cool cars go to social media. So we're trying to reach out to a different audience, maybe a younger audience, to help contribute to the NIL funds or to the athletic programs to help get these players. Because if we're being honest, the players probably think it's cool, but what they think is cooler is more money. Any way to build up that war chest of money to give these players bring out all the stops. So that's
only.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's only going to get crazier and crazier. If you guys remember, I believe it was with Caleb Williams at USC or Lincoln Riley. It's one of the two, but there was access to the jet within a 24-hour window that they could use. It's only going to get crazier and crazier. And the bad part is it's going to fuel the egos of the wrong people way too much. Because the people who are level-headed, for example, like Arch Manning, obviously he could have gone anywhere and started day one probably, but he chose to go to Texas, I think, to try to build his name after Ewers leaves. Obviously, he could have been like, oh, I'm better than this. Do you know who I am? And then go to insert SEC school or somewhere that doesn't have a good QB, been the man day one, and just gotten probably already be $5-10 million and played 2 seasons. But people like that can handle it. And then there's going to be people who take it way out of proportion who can't handle it. And I think you're going to see some of these younger kids crumble under it, sort of like what happened to Johnny Football. He's going to be so built up on this house of cards that when he gets to the people who are making as much money with him in the NFL, he's going to miss all those life experiences that they went through in college when they weren't getting paid. And they had truly, they were probably struggling a little bit if they weren't making money under the table compared to getting handed $500,000 day one on campus. You'll never have to worry about where you're eating or really checking your account your freshman year. We just need you to play football and make it to class. I think there's a lot of life lessons that are going to be leapfrogged, and there's going to be gaps that it's going to truly depend on the player and if they can actually handle all this wealth and responsibility at such a young age. So it's going to be interesting to see how they have maybe a life coach or financial coach to really get these players on the right path, or if they're just going to kind of turn a blind eye and be like, look, you're good at football. I know you're messing up, but I need to win because of my job's sake. I don't have time to make you a better man. And they're just going to turn a blind eye to a lot of these things. So it's going to show the true colors of the coaches and how are they really becoming better men, or are they just playing football? And is it just for the financial side of things, or are they actually trying to build people into better men? Saban, all the players who played for Saban, I think, became better men just through his program because it was a very structured. It got all these people who were the man at their high school coming to the same program, buying into the same ideas. And I think there was a stretch where if you got recruited from, it was 09 to 15 or 16, it was guaranteed you won one national championship during your time at Alabama, which is extremely hard to do. And now that it's just, like you were saying about money and Lambos at UT, you'll see, obviously, maybe A&M has a bigger idea, and they're like, all right, we have a jet for everybody to go on like spring break together next season if you guys want to do that. And then that gets incorporated into NIL. So it's going to be crazy. It's just going to get out of proportion. And at some point they need to come in and be like, all right, we need to focus on players and keeping them really developing as men rather than just handing them checks and playing football. That's a very long-winded rant, but that's my 2 cents on UT Lambos.
Yeah. Good thing Saban didn't get Henry Ruggs a Lambo at his time out. But
Hey,
moving along.
Too soon.
Corporate sponsorships on fields. Don't know if you have much on this. I saw Lane tweeted at Tennessee that he thought it was supposed to be, I think it was French's mustard. I really thought he was going to say it was supposed to be Titleist or Ping or something after getting the golf ball thrown at him while playing there. But I think it's kind of playing into the same extent of things of just football's always been entertainment, but we're seeing more and more of sponsorship and things creep all over this. But Coleman, you're much more knowledgeable about sponsorship at sports games. Don't know if you have any 2 cents or if this is just
I think it's just good for the programs. Another way to make money. The sponsorship money goes in that revenue share where the kids can make a percentage of that. So I think the more sponsorship money, the better. Just the more money these programs are going to bring in, the more money they can go to these universities, the more money they can go to these facilities, coaches, players, whatever. I don't think there's anything super, super controversial about it. I don't want to see a fucking Heinz logo in the middle of the Tennessee Volunteer Field. But you can throw stuff on the 25-yard line or something like that. I truly don't care. But I think it's just a good way for another way for the universities to make more money.
I think it's the only people complaining. I mean, I'm sure there's young people that are complaining, but I think it's the old heads that are just purists to the game that are just like, why are you ruin my field or whatever. It's like, I don't know, dude. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't pay the players to have a good team to win a national championship and then, like, I don't know. It's just not how things work, You're
never going to change the get off my lawn people. And I'm the same way with baseball. Like, I am a get off my lawn person. So I'll be the first to admit, but you're never going to change those people.
Coleman, you're very much traditionalist when it comes to baseball, but pitch clock, have you been supportive or?
I hate it. I want my games to go longer. I'd sit there for 4.5 hours and watch these games. Also, when you go in person, less time to drink beer.
Right.
That's the real reason for the 4.5 hour games.
Don't cut us off in the 7th inning.
Yeah, 7th inning's an hour and a half in. What are we doing, people? You're losing out on beer sales, which could be going to the players.
All the people doing the 9x9x9 challenge or whatever, the 9 beers, 9 dogs, and 9 innings, dude, they got to be hammering all of that. That has got to be so quick.
Yeah. That sounds absolutely brutal.
Is the 9x9x9 harder than the 4x4x48?
No.
Absolutely not. No. Less time dedicated to it. And your body probably doesn't feel as bad. I never did it, but I can only imagine.
Hats off to the one man in here that actually has accomplished it. I never attempted it, but very much hats off to the one man who did complete it in this WNBA leading podcast, Trailblazer.
I'll say this. I would have rather done the 9x9 challenge than done 4x4x48. My calves were inflamed. I was tired. And it wasn't good for the game. We didn't grow the game that day.
Hey, you push it.
I want to take a second to explain the 4x4x48 for anybody who doesn't know. It's 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight. Do the math. Coleman Young did that. It's 48 miles. So I believe. No, maybe.
I got a few hours in and I thought I tore my hip flexor. I thought I was like Luis Robert on the Red Sox. I thought I was done for the season, but not the case.
And not to get back off topic here, but I think Jake and Luke brought up a good point with traditionalists with baseball, because I think that's moving to a lot of different sports now and a lot of different areas of life. Luke brought up a really interesting question to the group this week, and I kind of wanted him to share that and kind of give our 2 cents on it, because we're all around the same age. So, Luke, floor is yours, Mavs fan.
Yeah, and it is June. It's hard to come up with topics, so you got to really get creative here. So, one thought that kind of came to my mind, and this is kind of sparked through siblings and friends that have younger siblings. So I have a younger sister, and a lot of her friends and, her group, they're very, I don't want to say just they're like it's like just a societal thing, but everybody's just kind of caught in one thing, and that's TikTok and not sports, right? So my thought was, how many young people do actually watch sports? And like, we're sickos. We're kind of in that tail end of like people that are like watching sports as much as we do. I mean, we're doing this podcast for crying out loud, but you know, I did a little research from like a little poll online. They did like a research, I think in 2020. It was like an online poll. It was YouGov, I think, was the research market research company. They're kind of like a Gallup poll type deal, but it did show like the people that watch live sports on a TV from the ages of 18 to 24 was about 31%, compared to something like a 45 to 54. Which the reason I chose that is, well, one, our parents will probably be to the older end of that, but also for myself, I'm an older soul. I wish I was in that, you know, age range. They're watching sports. About 56% of them are watching sports. So it's just really interesting. I think what drives that, I'm trying to think, it's like there's just multiple options how to view things. There's like, for example, like the NFL, for example, you know, you got Amazon Prime, you got NBC, CBS, Fox, you got now it's going to be, you know, there's just so many other options to watch things. You got Netflix that just gets in the way. Just, you know, other people just want to watch like the next greatest, you know, stand up, which is cool, or like the next show to get down. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of had that thought of really why are younger people not watching sports? I guess that's kind of my question to you guys. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I do think it's probably, now we're sounding like the old guys, right? But it's probably like a generational thing. I just think attention spans are much shorter. I think overall the pitch clock was good for baseball. It's cutting down time, and I think viewership and attendance, you know, they're selling more tickets, but I just don't think a lot of the younger kids really care. I think they much rather, again, watch like the minute-long highlight clip from the game on X, on TikTok, look at just like the amazing touchdown that was thrown. And I think that, you know, that's why some people, even when you look at the NFL, right, red zone's very popular because you're getting whip around coverage for all the action, right? You're not having to sit through the entire game. I know very true fans will watch every single minute, you know, like Luke with the Colts or Coleman with the Ravens, like every minute, every game, no matter how good or bad they are. True fans there. Even myself, though, I mean, I do think red zone's revolutionary. I love just watching what's in the red zone, what's the best catch of the day, big time plays when they're happening, mostly due to fantasy football reasons. But yeah, I think there's just so many other things competing for their attention that maybe they just don't care, right? Maybe they're far more interested in some other things, or I don't know. I mean, I feel like when I was growing up, I loved sports, and it was watching. Bo and I would watch Mike and Mike in the morning before school, like in elementary school. And that's how we'd start our days, right? So it was always kind of ingrained in us, probably from our father. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's some other reasons there, but that's all I can really think of.
I think it's a combination with that. And then at the end of the day, it's still entertainment. So now kids are like, I just want to be constantly entertained with video games or TikTok. I mean, you can get the exact same like, whoa, wow factor watching a 30-second TikTok is we probably get seeing somebody make a one-handed grab in the third quarter. That's like, whoa, everybody's going to talk about this the whole next week. It's just definitely like, it's an efficiency thing. And a lot of people just want immediately to be like, this is a big click, boom, I want to see it right now, just the highlights, and then move on to the next topic. I think our generation was probably like, as bad as this says, like the last one to really take things in a long format, just how we do this podcast and able to like sit down and listen through it. And now everything's just like sped up. Even when you talk to people, at least around me who are in grad school, all of them listen to everything on 2x speed. They're trying to like get through as much stuff as they can just to try to retain some of it. I think it's just society's changing and trying to pick up the pace. And it's going to be weird just seeing how this evolves with kids coming through the sports now, and how are they actually going to stick with things, or are they just going to kind of pass off things much faster than us? It's just interesting to see that we're probably one of the last or fewer generations that watches things like start to finish, unless you have some like skin in the game, like, you know, somebody you're gambling on it, something like that. obviously if you throw a few dollars on, you have a lot more emotions attached to the game. That's just my 2 cents. Especially if it's Ole Miss football, we're all going to tune in and be like, I'm watching this whole game start to finish. But if it's like Browns versus Dolphins, I don't care who wins that game. I'm not really going to be looking at it as hard as Ole Miss football, unless I have a few dollars on it.
I agree, Bo. We need to push middle schoolers and high schools to throw money on, get some action on games, get some skin in the game, get involved, get fine. Hey, when your pocketbook is tied to an outcome, you sit up in your chair a little bit. You care a bit more.
Gamble responsibly, people.
Yes, gamble responsibly.
Yeah, gamble responsibly. Yes.
And to that point, another thing too, with the younger generation, I think you see a lot of these iPad kids. I think you look at all these kids' movies where the animation, the color, they've done cognitive studies about how gripping those things are, where then everything else is very boring and like very lackluster. If you look at like the cartoons we watched growing up or some of those movies, they don't have those things built into them that'll really connect their minds and kind of get them hooked like they do today. And so I would not be shocked if it's, again, the entertainment value just is significantly different than sports as they're starting to get older too. But that's about all else I got on that. Coleman, you got anything?
I was realizing that too with like the Nickelodeon games and stuff like that. So I think sports are and leagues are trying to showcase other avenues to kids. But it's going to come at a lot slower pace than we think it will happen.
You froze there for a second.
Did I?
What was the last thing you said?
I'll take it from there. 2 cents, though, about where I think sports are going to grow the biggest moving forward is going to be the UFC. And as Dana White actually said, was slap boxing. Slap boxing, he said, is like 10x all of the other sports combined when he does his media metrics because it's over within 10 seconds. Like they're standing there, dude's knocked out, that's it, boom, done. So I think that kind of thing is going to become more and more gripping to younger people just because they're so used to like the games, the iPads. They've grown up only knowing that. Like, why isn't there instant feedback from what I just did? And like, well, we could watch a whole game of Wisconsin Badger football where it's 3-7 at the end of the game, and we'd be all happy watching that.
That's a great Saturday. Big Ten matchup, snow. The total combined points for the game. You look at some of those Iowa wins these past years, they're winning like 5-2, whatever the hell's going on there. Like disgusting to 90% of the people. I'd live for it. I think it's quite similar to Coleman in baseball. Coleman, I appreciate your dedication to the O's. But even myself, when these games get 4 or 5 hours long, I reach a point where I got to tap out. So I think it's really whatever your groove is there, whatever your preferred sport is.
Yeah, and I think going kind of piggybacking off of Bo and just like what will drive more people into sports, I guess. I think video games definitely are that way. I think with people that got into FIFA, they became bigger soccer fans. And with this new college football game, I know how I grew up. Obviously, my dad watched a ton of sports, but also NCAA 05 on the Xbox really got me into sports now. So maybe, actually having a good football game. I know Madden's been pretty successful, but I think with all the hype that's been, and we've been deprived of this game for however many years, a decade seemingly, like maybe there will be some higher viewership and just more younger people getting into sports again. Maybe there's like this rejuvenation of sport. So
totally.
Yeah, I love the FIFA analogy because I think soccer's popularity, especially in this country, is exponentially over the past decade or two. And I think a lot of it does attribute to FIFA. I mean, little kids grow up playing soccer, hate it, and then you go play football or you go play another sport, you go play basketball. But I think with FIFA, people are understanding the game, people are understanding the players, and be like, I want to be like them. And I want to go play soccer. I'm then now watching these players in the weekends. I'm watching them in the World Cup. I'm watching them in the Euros. I'm watching them in their home leagues. So I think it does. I think video games, especially FIFA and now college football, is directly going to translate towards an uptick of viewership. Because I think college football ratings are on the up and up. Attendance is on the up and up. So I think, why not? This can only help the game. It can't hurt it at all.
Yeah, it's those unique avenues that new fans stumble into things. I just think even of Netflix, you look at the quarterback series, Drive to Survive for F1, you look at Full Swing for golf. I think those are great avenues to open up new viewership. Even just like my wife with Full Swing loves watching golf events now, is actually into some of the player storylines, and it's quite unique, some of the things that they're opening up there. Hard Knocks too. I feel like that was huge growing up, watching all those. Still is, like watching those training camps. That's primetime TV.
Yeah, I mean, the Detroit Lions seemingly was America's team last year, and they were on Hard Knocks the year or the summer before or whatever. So it works.
It does. And with that, guys, I think we've reached the final question of the pod. Random. We're going to try to do a random question every week. And this week's question, I thought long and hard about this, but want to bring back some of the painful memories of our past. What's the most agonizing sports moment you've witnessed so far? While you guys are thinking, I'm going to kick it off with the one that immediately comes to mind to me. But it was, grew up in Wisconsin, big Wisconsin Badgers fan, obviously. And it was one of their, I think it was in the Elite Eight. They were playing Florida. Game looks good. Zach Showalter comes down, hits a big time shot. Aaron Rodgers is in the crowd. He turns to Zach Showalter, turns to Rodgers, does the discount double check belt. Right, I'm like, oh, this is going to go down as one of the biggest points in Badger history. To then have Chris Chiozza go almost end to end. I think he pulls up just above 3, puts up a last second 3-pointer. Drills it, of course. Badgers go home, get sent home. All of that great dream I had is squashed immediately. I think Bo and I, we were watching that with some buddies. Room was silent. There's no emotion, lifeless within that house. And that, to this day, that still bothers me. That was a moment taken from me that I'll never forget. So I'm curious to hear about any that come to mind for you guys.
I think there's 3 core ones that come to mind for me. As a Baltimore resident, Baltimore fan, Ole Miss fan, my teams haven't done great in the past, my lifetime. I did get a title in 2012 with the Ravens, but I think first hardest one was 2011 AFC Championship, Baltimore, New England. Joe's driving, they're down, I think 3 points, and 2-minute drill. They have Lee Evans wide open in the end zone, drops the ball. And I'm like, fine. We go out and kick the field goal. Billy Cundiff, wide right, misses the field goal. Ravens lose. But it ends up storybook ending. They come back to New England, win in 2012, and end up winning the Super Bowl. As of more recently, 2015, when the Orioles got swept by Kansas City in the ALCS, it was the first time the Orioles went far in the playoffs in my lifetime. Farthest they've been, I think, actually, farthest they've been in my lifetime. Played 4 games in Kansas City, got swept all 4, sucked. Life out of the room. I was disappointed, and then they weren't good again till 2000. And then I would say this year, honestly, with the Ravens losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, everything was there. You had the first ever home AFC Championship in Raven history. You go out and blow it like that. The NFL wrote the script, but these moments are just sad. They live in your head rent-free.
To that point, Coleman, I think we were together for that one. I can vouch. Coleman was in the dumps. I was a supportive friend during this hard time, but boy, oh boy, I have never seen you that sad. That was hard to watch.
I think for me, I grew up an Ole Miss fan. So in 2016, first year, I believe, of the playoffs, when Ole Miss had a really good run, the famous 4th and 25 play that every Ole Miss fan seemingly just doesn't want to ever talk about, but here I am talking about it. It was against Arkansas, last seconds of the game, 4th and 25, and all you have to do is stop them. And seemingly they did not do that. There was a lot of laterals going on. One from one Hunter Henry, who our friend is in love with, seemingly. I don't know. But so bad memories with that. And if we had that game, there was potential. I believe we would have been in the playoffs at that point. But because of that, yeah, it wasn't. It was not a great time. I'll say it. Not a great time in the Fox household.
Right, for mine, I might not have the dates right, but I can paint the overall picture. I still remember it vividly how I felt. So just imagine you're at your grandparents' house. Jake and I are there watching Michigan State, Kirk Cousins versus Wisconsin Badger Russell Wilson playoff. Huge game. Don't know if it's the championship, but I just remember it was a ginormous game. Badgers are winning. Michigan State marches down the field. Last second play, right? Hail Mary, probably from like the 50. All I remember, Michigan State grabs it. Complete silence in that house. Agony instantly hit me. I was just like, that's still to this day. I can remember exactly looking at the TV. Complete silence as they started celebrating. It's just, to this day, that's probably one of the hardest losses as a fan I've ever been a part of. That's probably the top one.
And another one that comes to mind, Bo, you'll remember this, the Hail Mary, Packers, Seahawks. Russell Wilson chucks it up to the end zone, I think to Golden Tate. There's a controversial catch where Golden Tate has it, our cornerback has it. The refs, one signals complete, the other one signals touchdown. They end up side with the touchdown, and they win on a last second controversial call there too. Those are hard to swallow, for sure.
Gosh. What a way to end the pod.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, leaving on a high note, obviously. But yeah, guys, I think anything else you want to touch on before we wrap?
No, thank you guys for listening to episode 4.
Yeah. Like and subscribe. Let us know any specific topics you guys want us to hit on next week.
Yeah, and check out our socials. I know we have we got TikTok rolling. We seemingly are trying to not get banned from it, but yeah, follow us there. We got good content. Sounds like we'll have a Instagram and Facebook or Meta, I guess, here in the next few days, weeks. So look out for that.
And we'll also start linking like our personal socials, like our X accounts, so you can follow us for more sports takes between episodes. Yeah, anticipate episode being released every single Wednesday. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
Damn, we lost him.
Dude,
Is it still recording? Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Part 2. And he's back. Are you still recording?